When I'm not trying to remember where the heck I put my enormous metal monolith, I like to answer questions that I get on YouTube, so let's get to it. Have you ever considered making more of these videos but for inversions? That's an easy 9 videos, first inversions for EAD string, second inversions for EAD, third inversion, etc. because they must be movable as well. Am I wrong? So this was off a video I did just about different chord voicings, right? But they're all root position chord voicings and they weren't inversions. Now I want to talk about inversions today and really just one chord that honestly changed how I really kind of think about building inversions on a guitar. So what's an inversion, right? Let's just take a regular C major chord right here. Rocking the Fender Ultra Strat out today, by the way, the neck pickup. And on the neck pickup. And basically we've got, you know, the C major chord that everybody knows, right? Ring finger's on the C as your bass note, which is also the root note. Middle finger is on its major third E. Then you have an open G string for its fifth, another C and another E, right? Any major triad is just 3 different notes. You can play a bunch of different strings, but there's only 3 different notes. There's repeats, right? Now an inversion is basically whenever the bass note is not the root note. So the most common inversion you'll see with this chord right here is you just move your ring finger lower and your pinky takes the spot of where your ring finger was. So this is a C chord with a G in the bass. You'll see that written as a slash chord, like a C/G. All that means is it's an inversion because we have a C chord, but the G is the bass note, right? And you know, I kind of studied inversions because it's always fun to kind of just build chords, but it wasn't until I really saw this chord right here that it really made me think about arranging things differently, okay? So, what chord is this, you ask? This is an E major chord. That's all it is, okay? But with a G sharp in the bass, or the third in the bass. Now, I first learned this chord when I was learning the Elliott Smith song, Memory Lane. There's basically a part in the song that goes like this. Okay, so really, I was like, what is that? I've never actually seen that chord. So my middle finger is on the 4th fret of the low E string. My pointer finger is on the 2nd fret of the D string. My ring finger is on the 4th fret of the G string. And my pinky is on the 5th fret of the B string. Now I'm only really playing the notes that I'm fretting. I could get that high E string in there because that note happens to be in this chord. But again, to make this movable, you don't actually need it, right? Now the reason that this is really interesting to me is because of how much it really sounds different than a root position chord. Most of the inversions that you'll see on a guitar are usually where the 5th is the bass note, right? Another example being like a F major chord played like this instead of a bar chord version. Technically it's an inversion because the bass note is a C, but F, G, A, B, C, it's a 5th, right? Now, I think when you start adding thirds, or, you know, so on and so forth, like 7ths and stuff, which we'll talk about in a second, you really get a totally different flavor of a chord. And why would you need this other than just being fancy? Specifically in that Elliott Smith song, it's like we're following a bass kind of progression. And it really adds so much texture to that. And it's something that I'm always trying to like explore, whether it's creating kind of some kind of solo arrangement for just a guitar, or maybe thinking of a bass line to go over a chord, okay? So let's dig into this a little bit further, right? If we just take the D string, G string, and B string right here, this is an E power chord, okay? I've got an E right here on the D string, its 5th, a B, and then another E. So we're really solidifying that this is some kind of E chord because we have 2 E's and only one of its 5th. But as soon as we slap that 3rd down, it really totally changes the texture of that chord, okay? Now, if you think about music theory too, the difference between a major and a minor chord is the 3rd. A major chord has a 3rd from the major scale. A minor chord has a flat 3rd, which is like in a minor scale, right? So this is E major, E minor. But really, it's such a different vibe from anything else that you can kind of do, right? I want to actually do another example of some cool things that you can do to think about choosing chords and naming them, right? Let's actually move this 1 fret higher to showcase that it's a movable shape, right? So just like that was an E major before, we just moved everything up to the next note. So the note after E is F. So now this is an F major, F minor, right? So right there, let's take F major to minor, or F major to minor in a more traditional way, right? But the cool thing about this is, let's think about, all right, your pinky right here. Remember, this is just another F, right? Or the root note of what we're building. So we can actually kind of manipulate this really easily by taking the 7th note. One of my favorite chords ever is a major 7 chord, right? All you have to do is add the 7th note in a scale from the major scale, which is just really a step behind where the root note is. So this is actually an F major 7, right? That does not sound like an F major 7 to me. And that's the importance of this. And this is why it kind of changed everything, because yes, this technically could be looked at as an F major 7, right? There's that F major 7 that I'm kind of more used to, or here. The prettiness of that F major 7. I don't get major 7 vibes for this, right? Because on a guitar where the bass note is really has extra significant importance, is because it's a thicker string. It kind of tends to dominate the sound of the chord that you're playing a little bit more. But once you start thinking about the, in a standard tuning, the low E string and the high E string are going to be the same notes. If we switch this all the way to the bottom, then you get some really F major 7 jams, right? This is one of my favorite major 7 chord voicings, right? Where again, I just have the 5th fret all the way down, and then the 3rd fret on the D string. When I have the A, or the major 3rd in the bass, I'm thinking of this as being more of like an A minor type vibe chord, right? Now, so what the actual name of that chord is essentially debatable, right? In certain contexts, it'd be like, oh, I'm playing an F major 7. And I'd be like, that's not an F major 7. Get that nonsense out of here, right? But you're not wrong, okay? But that's why really thinking about thirds being in the bass on a guitar, and then kind of manipulating everything around them in a scale going outside a key, I think just has a lot of importance, especially when it comes to like songwriting. And then again, like that Elliott Smith song goes, that hits so different when you go from there to a C, because essentially what we're doing is we're voice leading, right? It's just a creative way to get from one chord to another using common tones. I've got an E major, might be minor, F, and then we have another E major to a C. That sounds so much different than E to F, back to E to C, right? There's a world of difference. But essentially they're the same chord. So again, I thought that was just something that really kind of opened my eyes to this particular chord, and just how you can really easy take the major 3rd, swap it with the minor 3rd to make it minor, or just take your pinky to make a major 7 chord voicing. And it really just kind of made me rethink about building chords and where the bass note sits in a potential chord progression, and how you can use that to really set up the next chord, even if it's something kind of as basic as what a major triad tends to be. You look like hell. If that's the look you were trying for, congrats, you aced it. Wouldn't you know that is the exact look I was trying for? Thank you for noticing. Sean Daniel, you're not just good looking, you are talented and very good choice of music and girls. It never ceases to amaze me how thin the line is from being attractive to looking like total garbage can be for me specifically, and how certain people react to stuff. So I guess I'm just kind of patenting my own style, and think of it what you will. I actually used you as an example in my therapy last week. Does this guy realize he has no audio? Never mind. I love that someone would write a comment, a video that has 30,000 views, and he's like the first one that realizes it doesn't have audio, so he types a comment. Does anybody else realize this guy has no audio? and then he hits his volume button, and he's like, oh, never mind. Why does this guy remind me of Monica from Friends? 777. Well, that's a new one. Never gotten Monica before. I do feel like Monica would be the least likely friend that I would be equated with. But hey, whatever. I mean, I'm totally a Chandler, right? Or actually, no, I think maybe I'm actually the Tom Selleck of Friends. That or the monkey. I was too ignorant to ask that question or understand the answer before I signed up for Sean Daniels' comprehensive Patreon tutorial course for only $12 a month. There's no telling what advanced lessons I'll be learning and understanding next, thanks to Sean's affordable Patreon tutelage. That was not actually a solicited comment, believe it or not. So yeah, definitely check out the Patreon. In fact, one of my patrons develops like apps and stuff, and he made a learning app that kind of helps you loop different YouTube videos and browser stuff. So I'm going to link you because it's definitely something really cool that he just showed me how to use. And it's perfect for maybe taking like fast passages of something. Because again, I'm guilty of talking pretty fast in my videos and going over stuff. So it's really cool because you just set markers and you can just loop stuff over and over again. Super easy to use. And definitely check it out. I'll link it in the description. Hey Sean, I have a question. So I've been paying a lot of attention to your recent videos and I'm recently starting to get into wanting to understand the fretboard. I'm particularly interested in learning to play alongside a friend with moving around the fretboard, but I'm also interested in all of the courses and I'd like to know if there's any order you would suggest I should follow them in while learning all about it, all of it. Great question, because I have a lot of stuff right there. I've got 4 different Udemy classes and I've got a Patreon page. All the Udemy stuff is on sale from like a Cyber Monday code that I think is still good for like 4 more days, I believe. So check that out. But yeah, so here's what we got. The Patreon thing is definitely best if you're an absolute beginner because it goes over like your first guitar lesson up to like everything else. So there's like your first 40 guitar lessons essentially are on Patreon for $12 a month. Again, just blow through them all in a month, get caught up and then cancel. Like, I don't care, go for it, right? But also there's song lessons and a couple bonus lessons too. So most of the songs that I play on the guitar are also available on the Patreon page. And the cool thing about that is because there's more applicable things that I can talk more about, like the theory and the arrangement and composition of, and those get a little bit more advanced. As far as the courses, there's a Fingerstyle one that is definitely like a beginner one, so anybody can take that one. The next 2 skill-wise ones would probably be the Master the Fretboard one I did with Justin. You don't really need to have a lot of prerequisite knowledge for that one, and it goes pretty in detail through all the modes and stuff. After that would be the Jamming with Confidence one with Ian. I would still say beginner level people could get a lot out of that course, but it's more geared towards being able to play alongside with a friend or a backing track or something like that. And then there's the one with Davidas about how to like solo like a pro. And that one I would say is a little bit more intermediate to advanced because it goes over 3-note per string stuff. So that would be the order in which I would rank that stuff. But if you're unsure, I definitely think the Patreon is the best bet. It's also the cheapest too, if you just do it for like a month just to see if it's something worth your while. I've always wanted to puddle jump. So if you missed it, we're giving away a free guitar, a Journey Instruments puddle jumper that I showcased on the video last week. So if it's free, you just have to comment on a couple videos if you want to be entered. So I'm going to link you in the description below if you want to check that out because you could win a free guitar. So make sure you do that. Speaking of the people's chord of 2020 being the key of D winning out over the key of B flat, the key of 2021 should be B flat, right? I hope so. So once again, in the most contested election of 2020, the key of D beat the key of B flat to be the official key of 2020. But 2020 is mercifully almost over soon, and B flat is coming in hot and heavy. So stay tuned for 2021. Key of B flat is our official key. Saying you can learn every blues song ever made in 8 minutes is the same as saying that because you were just issued your first driver's license, you can successfully compete in Formula 1 racing. Really a great Salty Blues comment here. And honestly, the guy's not wrong, because the blues is totally like Formula 1 racing, because in 8 minutes, you can understand how it works. You go in a big circle, and you try to do it faster than everybody else. Just like you learn 1, 4, and 5, and you try to do it better or more creative than anybody else. That's not to take away from anything that blues players can do or anything that Formula 1 players can do that is way beyond my comprehension. But essentially, the goal is the same, and the framework is fixed. Now, that's really not how the blues is, but that's how that video kind of like portrays a lot of stuff. Anyways, Salty Blues comment, I feel like I no longer need to defend myself from it. Listening homework this week, I'm going to link you to a video that Queens of the Stone Age released of a kind of acoustic-ish session that they did. And they reworked a lot of their songs, and they kind of stripped them down, and it's just like a super cool vibe. Queens is one of my favorite bands ever, and I definitely had a lot of fun checking that out. So I hope you do too. If you have any questions or comments, hit me up in the comment section, Instagram, Twitter, or the website. I'll talk to you all soon. Thanks a lot.